Hello, and welcome to me doing too much. Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to the most labor-intensive book review I have ever done. It recently occurred to me that NetGalley has a crafts and hobbies section, and I have crafts and hobbies. So I went on there, and the second I saw the Handsewn Wardrobe by Louisa Owen Sonstroem, I was like, yes! That is everything, because I yearn to have an entire outfit all made by me, down to the underwear, okay? But I don't want to use the machine because the machine is loud and complicated and stressful, and I like the repetitive hand motions of hand sewing. Yes, I have taken all of the self-evals, and they say exactly what you'd expect, but now is a really bad time to get a proper diagnosis in this country, okay? Regardless, I decided that the only way I can properly review this book in a video is to actually create the pattern and sew one of the garments in here, specifically the long gathered skirt. I guess it's actually just called the gathered skirt, but I don't wear any skirts that go above my knees. So if you've been around my channel, you may know that I have a giant long skirt collection. It's what I wear the majority of the year. Admittedly, I'm not wearing one right now, but that's because it's summer, and summer is maxi dress time. But the rest of the time, I am wearing long skirts, and I own 50 of them. I'm currently in the middle of finishing up 51 that I also hand sewed myself, but I've never followed someone else's instructions in making a skirt. Like, I've made several, but I never actually had to do what someone else advised me to do. So this is still going to be a trip. Now, each of the projects in this book is made up of two different parts, the patterning and the sewing. You do not have to do both. You can use your own pattern and just use the techniques on hand sewing, or you can make the pattern and then machine sew it. But I am going to do technically both of those sides, just different. I've already changed it. I actually messaged the author to be like, hey, can I switch out the zipper for an elastic waistband? Because I don't wear zippers in my skirts. And she said, yes, that should work. So this is my pattern. Ta-da! It is made up of a bunch of printer paper duct taped together because we use what we have. Now, technically in the origins, you can do so much more with this than what I did. You can figure out exactly how skirts lay on your body and change the difference in length between the sides to make sure it all lays flat. Not doing any of that. I don't know if I am just proportionally same front and back, or I just don't care that much, but I haven't noticed any significant differences in hems. But most importantly, you know what this is? Pockets. The pattern comes with pockets. All right. So I officially love it. Just a little bit more. Now, I've actually already done both the patterning and the cutting out off screen. Well, I mean, I was filming, I just wasn't talking, because those are the most stressful parts for me, because I am mostly a crocheter, right? And in crochet, it is much more forgiving, because when you crochet, if you screw up, you can just frog it, unravel it, and you have the exact same material you started with and can try again. You miscut fabric, you're screwed. It's so much more anxiety inducing than crochet. Hence why the first skirt I ever free-handed was crochet. Now, I found this lovely autumnal, maybe a bedsheet, maybe a tablecloth, IDK. It's 100% cotton at the thrift store. And I was like, I want to wear that to Thanksgiving. So I laid it all out. We got it cut out. And I have it now in its own project bag. I won this tote in the Adult Summer Reading Challenge for my library. Not to flex. But I do have all the pieces in here. And I guess there's nothing left but to just start putting it together. And a fair warning for any avid sewists that the high craft of it. I'm a feral goblin when it comes to sewing. I'm not going to do it the right way. Not going to use a thimble, okay? I had some nerve damage in this hand as a kid, and that plus the very likely neurodivergence means I just use my hands weird. You should see how I hold a pencil. So I hate using a thimble so much, and I'm also knotting the thread in my own way. So you've been warned. I am not Bernadette Batter. This will not be a great example of top tier sewing. This will be me just trying really hard to make the skirt I want to wear to Thanksgiving. So let's get to sewing. All right, so I'm currently working on attaching one half of the pockets to one half of the skirt panels. You have to do this before you sew the sides together, and then you just go around. I'm hoping this works. I really want pockets. this part is also nerve-wracking because I have never used notches to line stuff up before. Regardless, let's start talking about the book itself. I loved its vibe because it was less of a, here is the proper way to sew, you peasants, and more of a, here's why those common sewing things are the common sewing things. Why it matters if you cut grain versus cross grain, because gravity will affect the garment on your body differently. Why you use certain stitches for stretchy versus non-stretchy fabrics. Because I am a consummate contrarian, and if it had come across like a, you must do this thing or not be the good sewist, I would have noped out so fast. I also love that the book, kind of explains things that might be obvious to other people. Because, like, I cannot count the number of times I have been watching some sewing video and nodding along like my dumbass even understood half of what they were saying. I was like, yes, cutting on the cross grain is a little bit of a risky maneuver with that fabric. You're right. No idea. And this one is like, here's what a grain is. Here's what the cross grain is. Which was very nice. And they were just general sections on, like, various stitches with different diagrams. And I was a little bit iffy because I don't know how well I learn off of diagrams alone, but I actually did use the overcast on raw edges to finish out another project, which I did finally put the hook and eye on, so I have finished another skirt before this one. I might show it off to you later. But I actually found that while it took a couple read-throughs to like get the gist of what it was saying, I did get it, and I did manage to use it off the diagram. I also love that the stitches come with, like, x-ray version, so it's like, here's what the stitch looks like basically running between the fabric, like from a side view almost, and why you want to use it for this situation because of its strength or its quickness or whatever. Do I think I'm going to be using the vast majority of those? No, I am a running back stitch girly. That will probably remain as such. I am using a running stitch now because that's what it tells me to do, but I will definitely not be using the running stitch it tells you to do to attach the panels, because while her skirts might not be getting a lot of tension in the panels, I work with small children and I'm clumsy, so my skirts are getting tugged on all the time. We are doing, again, a running back stitch. Now, this isn't exactly a book you're supposed to read cover to cover. Generally speaking, you're reading the front part, you know, with the general facts on hand sewing and the stitches and the fabric types, and then you pick the project you want and you go from there. But the fun part about reading it cover to cover was all the little bios between the projects, because it talks about other hand sewists, but not just like the big fancy ones that are running their own businesses of hand sewn clothing, although there were a few of those. There were also other people that were like, I use 4 stitches and 4 stitches only, and I never use a thimble. And honestly, I felt so seen. But just that idea of reinforcing the, I don't know, fluidity of it. Like, yes, there are things you are encouraged to do because of the mechanical benefits they have, but it's not actually the requirement. Just running a needle through fabric with thread will hold stuff together, and you can just focus on that. That being said, though, I might have skim read, like a little bit, because there were certain projects that I knew for a fact that I was never even going to attempt. Like, I don't even wear jeans anymore. I'm definitely not hand sewing a pair. Just did the neatest, tidiest little row of back stitches, and now I gotta seam rip them because I did it wrong. Yay! Alright, take 2. Let's try this again. I would also like to reiterate that all of my fuck-ups are mine. I am not doing exactly everything it says to do because of my goblin nature, but there probably is something that would have prevented that from happening if I had followed all the steps. Good news, we have all of the pocket pieces attached, and I did double check lining them up, and they do actually match up. Notches actually work. I probably should have used them more at the top of the panels and the waistband, but we'll beat that dead horse when we come to it. I need a break.
Hi, I just finished the last skirt before this one. Do you want to see it? Okay. Haha. I'ma look so cute at the Renaissance fair. The very first skirt I ever hand sewed. But I did learn some things, like, you really got to make sure to put some adjustability in the clothing you make because it takes so long. I designed this one, did all the measurements shortly before I had a little health scare with my insulin resistance and overhauled my diet. And I didn't realize I was making such headway because now this thing is like fully an inch too big in the waistline, and I did not account for how to alter it. It's a really good thing that I wear a lot of waist belts because I'm going to need that for a while. Thankfully, the skirt you're seeing here that I'm working on is going to be elastic, which I'm probably going to have to focus on. But yeah, when I went to measure my waist for the gathered skirt, it was like fully an inch shorter, smaller. I don't know. But yeah, so this type of clothing making takes way too long to not take into account your changing body, because ain't no way I'm spending all this time sewing just to lose it because of a body change. All right, so we are attaching the skirt panels to each other, right sides together, and getting that all put together. And, I did have a realization when I was making the skirt I'm currently wearing, which is a lot of people, when they first start to, like, make their own things, are all like, oh, but what if it's bad? What if it looks bad? What if there are mistakes? And it's like, when it comes to clothing, there's a ton of mistakes in, like, your average fast fashion, right? They're not paying those impoverished global south women in the sweatshops to do their best, and I don't want them to do their best. Those corporations don't deserve it. Go on, queens, give them nothing. But I realized that, like, why are we giving all this grace to mega corporations who are fucking up clothes out of greed, but we won't give grace to people fucking up clothes because they're literally putting them together by hand? Like, one of those people deserves grace and the other one does not. And so then I was like, you know what? If they're allowed to fuck up, so am I. Who cares if the clothes have weird puckering or extra stitches? I don't care. I can alter it. And as I get better, I can go back and fix whatever was wrong. So, screw it. I am erasing my imposter syndrome. I am better than a megacorp. I deserve nice clothes. I should probably be talking more about the book, but honestly, I'm getting so distracted with how nice this feels to work with. This was definitely a bedsheet. Regardless, I liked how this book was really, like, call it marrying the ancient with the modern, because obviously, hand sewing has been the norm for humans for much longer than it hasn't, but everything in the book is something mostly made for the machine age. Yes, we have this gathered skirt, obviously, but there's also, like, leggings and, modern underwear, jean jackets, jeans, and other things that just would not have been made by hand traditionally, that were invented after the sewing machine was. And so it's kind of fun to be like, okay, how do we take this very ancient method with very modern styles? And so there's almost like if this picked up, right? If this concept was more widespread, which it does seem like more people are at least getting interested in slow fashion and handmade fashion. But if it did, like, imagine the next generation of hand sewists who have figured out a more, like, optimal way of sewing a hoodie together. And, like, imagine if this was the start of, like, a kind of new neo-traditional, neo-modern mix. And that, neo-modern, I'm getting distracted by the nice fabric. This is going to feel so good on my legs. All right, I have the one side attached, and I'm a little bit anxious how well the pocket openings lined up, but if we need to throw on some extra stitches to reinforce, that's fine. Now it is lunchtime. I am hungry. Hopefully I will get the other side attached today, and then I will come back to you for the waistband tomorrow.
What's up, Buttercup? We have a problem. I finished sewing both sides together, and it's right now a giant pillowcase. And I was trying it on to make sure I liked where the pockets were at, and I found out that, yes, I do need to do a little bit of repair with the pockets connecting to the panels. But then when I went to, like, jokingly try it on, I realized it super restricts my strides. Either I did not realize how much that this was not going to be enough material, or I didn't realize how long my strides are. But I literally used, like, the full length of the sheet. Like, I went from edge to edge. So I could not have made these pieces any bigger with what I had, which is just kind of the side effect of using thrifted materials. You're really restricted in what you actually have. So my options are either I can cut up the panel, like, seams and add in another panel, or I can just hem it up higher. I believe if I do it to, like, my knees or just under my knees, it should work. And I do have some skirts I wear at those lengths. They're just usually more spring summer skirts, but I'm going to wear leggings under this regardless, so that's fine. And in the future, I will just have to remember that I need way more. But that also means that I'm going to do way more patchwork, which is something I already do with my thrifted crafting materials, like this, crochet skirt, my crochet rainbow skirt. You can see is a million different kinds of colors all put into it for the express purpose of I never have enough crochet skeins, yarn skeins to do any one big project on its own. You'll also notice that the panels here start narrow and get wider, kind of like the skirt from yesterday. So I am learning more of how to use my own personal patchwork thrifty style in these patterns. And in the future, when I do finally do that, all the little scrap fabric patches put together, I will just remember that I just needed like a ton. Now I am putting together the waistband, which for me just means I'm doing a line of running stitches beneath where the elastic will go, but with enough room beneath it that the skirt can attach without attaching to the elastic, because it's a little bit different than the origins. And this is the part where I had to message the author to be like, would this work? And she said yes. So this is what we're going with. I honestly don't think I would even want to wear the original skirt in the book, but that's kind of the point of making your own clothes. You get it to be whatever you want it to be. And I really hope this works, because what comes next is the hardest part of the project. And I will probably talk to you again then. All right, all of the gathers have been prepped. It is now time to actually do this part. Nerve-wracking. Okay. We'll even them all out. Is that about the right size? Yes, it is. Okay. So this part is just going to take like a cajillion bits of fussing around to make it work. So I'll come back to you in a bit. All right. You ready to see it? Okay. It is all put together. Of course, minimal gathers because of the lack of fabric that I had, but also it means that you can see the pattern in much more detail, so I'm not too mad. And also I'm hoping that means that this will be faster to sew. But that wasn't quite as terrifying as I was afraid of. You know that crafter feeling when you're so sure that that one thing is going to take you like forever and be a chore, and then when you actually sit down to do it, it's a lot quicker than you were expecting, but you never learn, like you keep getting freaked out again. It's that thing that if you have crafted for any length of time, you probably know. But now, I got to get this put down, technically with a fell stitch, which I have not used before. So, this should be fun. I don't know if fell stitches are easier than I thought, or I work off of diagrams better than I thought. But this is going suspiciously well. I actually do have the book on my tablet right here to be like, is that what it's supposed to look like? And it is nice to have a picture being like, this is what your fell stitch should look like. Granted, mine looks a little sloppy because I'm trying a stitch for the first time, but I actually like the look of hand stitching. I think it looks homespun and cute. If you could see closer to the kerchief on my head that I made myself, you could actually see that the thread is a different color than the fabric, because I like when they show. I honestly would have picked a thread that matched this, but all of my color threads were too bright and vibrant to really match with the more muted autumnal color scheme, hence why I'm using the cream, and also because I got the cream as part of a gift thread set, and I gotta use it at some point. We're trying not to buy a lot of new craft supplies right now.
Are we ready? La voila! The skirt exists. The pockets are a little bit lower. I need to do like a cajillion little futzy things to clean it up. And also, again, I gotta hem it up because I don't got strides for nothing. But it exists. So I will come back to you when I have beautified all this up and we can talk about my final thoughts on the book.
La voila!
So fun fact, I have actually already worn this out and about. In fact, my husband and I signed up to be extras in a locally filmed movie. So you might catch this skirt walking in the background of a Groundhog's Day style family comedy. Because yes, we had to dress like it was February in California when it was July in the Midwest. Little bit warm, not gonna lie. But regardless, let's talk about the skirt and the book. I was a little bit iffy about the skirt at first because it's not exactly what I had envisioned, but I just love the pattern so much that I already know like 10 different ways I'm going to start styling this. Like the second it gets cool enough for the long sleeves to come out, I already got like shirts waiting, and that's a really big deal for me. I have currently reached the point where I don't want to just like get clothes. I want to curate
a wardrobe, so I do not bring in new things unless I have an idea of something that would go with. But I also do want to go out and get like an orange top that could match this one. But for right now, I am really happy with how well I did considering everything. Yes, the fabric wasn't quite enough for the full swoosh, and yes, the pockets are a little bit too low. But for the very first time following someone else's pattern, I'm proud. With that, I'm happy that I was able to make the changes that I needed to do it. And in general, I am happy with the end product, even as I am planning on how I will do it better in the future. As for the book, I got about exactly what I wanted from it. I made a new skirt. This is skirt number 52. Yay. But on top of that, I also learned new stitches that will help me with the way I sew, specifically overcast and fell. And I don't know if I was just like being too hard on myself and I can learn from diagrams, or if the diagrams were particularly good, but like learning the stitches off the diagrams, not nearly as hard as I was afraid of. That being said, I don't know how much more I'm going to pull out the other projects from here, just because, well, in some cases, they're things I don't usually wear, and in other cases, I already have other plans for how I'm going to get patterns for those. Like, I literally have an old pair of leggings where the inseams are too far gone to be used, so I'm just going to cut them up and use them as a fabric pattern. So I have some ideas, but I might still use it for the, like, here's the stitch to use on that fabric in that way type of deal. I don't think I'm going to ever be that kind of sewist that knows, like, all of the stitches and the exact right ways to use them, but for the most part, this was really helpful. It is exactly what I needed with the stage of the journey I am on, which is I want to learn all the different skills so that I can then just do stuff entirely on my own. I am not there yet. I still need to rely on things like tutorials and books and stuff. But once I get all of the individual requisite skills, then I'm just going to go and going to ignore all patterns and all books and just make whatever weird clothes I want to. As for the fabric, I did actually make a kerchief to go with it. Unfortunately, it's a little too busy to wear both at the same time. It's almost like they're competing with each other. But now I have another kerchief. The rest of the fabric is going to get cut up into 5" by 5" squares because I have a couple patchwork projects in the very, very earliest stages. But regardless, I would give this book 5 stars, exactly what I needed for it, exactly the right vibe if you are a contrarian that isn't like being told the official and proper way to do things. I think even if you are an experienced machine sewist, you'll probably still get a lot out of this just because it is hand sewing. If you are an experienced hand sewist, I don't know, like maybe you don't do a lot with pattern making. There's also a lot of pattern making in here. But this definitely does tend more towards the slightly beginner side, but it's always good to brush up, so you can still check it out. It will be out August 5th, which if I am on top of things enough, this will come out before then. And you can also check out my written review for it in the description below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.